Hello and welcome to the FocusHoops WNBA Show. It is episode 5. We are halfway through the WNBA season. So today, what better thing to do than to recap the first half of the WNBA season 2020. Joined with, my name is Darren Paul, and joining me today is the royalty of Manchester basketball with new super speedy internet. It is Kaz. Kaz, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Darren. I'm very good. And I'm very excited for my super fast internet. It's been the best week ever.
The entire world is very grateful for your internet provider fixing their business. Who knew that the door behind you looked like that?
It's just surprises every week now.
Very quickly, following on from last week, what is today's jersey or t-shirt of choice for the teams?
We have the Portland Trail Blazers and the Damian Lillard because it's Dame time all the time.
Can't pin you or your allegiances down. And you know what? Part of me kind of respects that. Part of me kind of enjoys that. Joining us back after his 1 week hiatus in which he, of course, watched just all of the basketball that has ever been played, pretty much ever. Michael Hansen-Morris, WNBL D1 Coach of the Year. So, you know, that was a bit of a Freudian slip from me because I am confident that one day we're going to see you on a WNBA sideline. I'm just saying.
Well, I thought I would throw back to another WNBA sideline expert with a headband. So now we've lost one, I thought we could gain one for tonight.
If that's not how you're going to dress for your next coaching assignment, then I tell you what, Mikey, you are not the man I thought you were. Okay? I need to see you crouched. Now, for people who haven't seen Michael Hansen-Morris coach, it's quite an interesting experience. Very, very good coach, obviously. But your manner of coaching, sometimes Mikey will just walk to the scorer's table or just next to it and just crouch down and just get really small and just like really analyze the game from like I don't know what it means, but I do enjoy to see it. So bring that in with the headband. Give the people what they want, Mikey. All right.
Well,
so
is that an exercise bike?
Yes. Oh no, I didn't get that picture. I should have got that picture as an overlay. Yeah, talk us through the exercise bike, Mikey.
I love it. And I've messaged a couple of coaches yesterday and we're all in laughter because actually I think we can all relate to it a little bit. So I think it was Tuesday night, Kurt Miller decided that to release some stress from missed layups that he would jump on the exercise bike that is at the end of every team bench. So yeah, that's a new one. I've never seen it before, but I think a few of us coaches can relate to it. And yeah, it was interesting to see. And I'm not saying I'm going to try it out, but you never know.
I want to see it. I want to see you pedaling away with your headband. I think that's going to be a good look and a good time for everybody. Let's kick off with looking at the WNBA standings. Standing atop of the WNBA are the Seattle Storm. They are 11-1. They have just been smashing all before them. Really quite impressive stuff. Las Vegas and Los Angeles, both 8-3, along with Minnesota. Chicago, 8-4 record. So they've played the most games out of everybody, I think, pretty much. Oh, not quite, but almost. Phoenix, 6-6. Connecticut, 5-7. And Indiana, 4-7. They are your current top 8. They are the playoff teams. Beneath them, you've got Washington, Dallas, Atlanta, and New York. We are going to go through the WNBA today in reverse order. And we're going to kick off with the New York Liberty. They are 12th in the WNBA. They've got a 1-10 record. And their form, well, they've lost their last 5 games on the spin. So first off, just opening thoughts on the New York Liberty. Kaz, let's kick off with your good self.
Obviously, the loss of Sabrina in the third game is a massive loss, and that's contributing to the quite poor record at the moment. I don't think we expected them to win a lot at the start of the season. I think we said that, they're young. They've got 7 rookies coming in. They've got a new head coach. Walt Hopkins, he says he's trying to build a culture. He's not come in to win a championship with 7 rookies in the first season. He's trying to build something, and he wants to establish an identity for them. He wants them to be a good 3-point shooting team, and he wants them to be a threat from outside rather than kind of dominant inside. That's what he's looking to do. And obviously we've seen flashes of it where it's working, but then we've kind of seen a lot of games where it's not. They don't look very together, and maybe some of the players are not entirely sure of what positions they're supposed to be. But that's just the learning curve and the nature of the position that they're all in. For me, someone that stood out has been Zoe B. She's had some really good games, and Clarendon's really kind of stepped up and taken that veteran role, even though she's, I guess not in typical terms a veteran, but on that team she is, and she's been a really good vocal leader on and off the court for them.
For me personally, Laisha Clarendon's been one of my favourite players to watch in the entire WNBA. And like you say, she's a 7-year veteran, which, that makes you a vet in this league, and certainly with this team. But I've really enjoyed her game, her responsibility of bringing the ball up the floor every single time. And her 2-woman game, or 2-man game, with Amanda Zaidi at times has been very effective, and at other times not so much. Mikey, what have you seen with the New York Liberty?
Struggles. And that's been it. We kind of thought young team. Obviously, Sabrina changed the way they played a lot. Anytime you lose your leading scorer, it's going to be a challenge. But they're on pace for the worst average margin of loss in WNBA history, which is maybe something we didn't quite expect them to struggle this much. And it's been a bit of a shame, really, because they had that spell in the middle where they looked really competitive. They had the win, a couple of close losses, and then it's all kind of just fallen back to shreds again. So yeah, it's been a really turbulent start. They've made some jumps. They've certainly turned over the ball a lot less as the season's grown, and they've started to attempt more. But they've just got a lateral. They don't have a natural scorer on the roster really. Clarendon's kind of taken the lead on that, but you really wouldn't call someone like Kia Nurse, Zoe B, like pure scorers, and they just don't have that emphasis, just consistency on the offensive end that allows them to be in a lot of games.
Now, Kia Nurse, she's really interesting one to me because she's a player that I've always quite liked. I realised that I watched her at a FIBA America Cup a couple of years ago and was blown away by her. Her scoring has been really, really poor. She's shooting like 20% from the field last time I looked at the data about 2 days ago. But where she's been really effective is generating contact, getting to the free throw line. I think she had about 22 points in her loss last week against, I want to say Chicago, but I don't think it was. But she's finding a way for the team. And I think that's a large part of what they're going to be this year. New York is, if they're going to find wins, they're currently 1-10. They're going to find a couple more wins, I'd imagine. But it's all about them just finding a way and sort of willing out the wins rather than anything else. Kaz, you of course mentioned it, Ionescu. I mean, Mikey, how important has Ionescu's loss been to this club?
Oh, huge. I mean, you're talking about someone that was going to be a leading scorer, not just for New York, but probably in the whole league. She was going to be up in that conversation. Someone that may well have led the team in assists. Someone that was kind of seen as one of the figureheads of the whole league coming in. And to lose her just two and a bit games in was a loss. Obviously, we've not heard an update in a while. I think there's something out that she's actually at the Bryant's house right now. So she's got evaluated in New York and obviously gone back to the West Coast. So I imagine we won't see her again this season, which is a shame because she had real glimpses. Obviously, the first game against Seattle was a struggle, but then she had the 34-point performance, I want to say, off the top of my head, in the second game, and she really showed that she could make an immediate impact on this league. So yeah, and you just hope that she comes back fully healthy, and it'll be interesting to see if she counts as a rookie next year, having only played 2 games. I don't think they do, but she's effectively going next year into a rookie year again, which is definitely a setback.
And another thing, and Kaz, you're all over this kind of thing. Have we seen anything about Europe for Ionescu?
No, I haven't. We have for Carter and a couple of the other players, but nothing for Sabrina. So I wonder if she will maybe just take the year into next season, rehab, work on a game, and just get back to New York. But you would have thought something might have come out by now.
I would expect it so. Any more on New York? Anything else that's really stood out to us before we move on?
I think Kia Nurse still looks like she's playing hurt from that ankle injury in the first game. With you, as you were saying, with the shooting, but she's driving because it's a kind of confidence thing. When you've been injured and you're shooting and you've been injured like that, you don't want to. You're a bit apprehensive, and she looks almost like she is a bit. So I don't know if she's fully healed, and maybe there's a risk there. If it's not fully healed, should she be playing when these games are not super close?
I mean, that is one way of putting it. The thing with New York is they've been weirdly competitive at times. Like it was a Chicago game. I think they were Seattle. They lost by 1 point to Seattle, and things like this. And this is all without Ionescu. And again, I think they're actually kind of fun to watch. I've really enjoyed watching them, certainly in the last 2 weeks or so. But like you said, go on.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I feel like they're either one extreme or another. I feel like they're really fun and really good, or not. There's no in between.
Well, Mikey, anything else before we move to Atlanta?
Not in New York, nope.
All right, let's move on to Atlanta. The Atlanta Dream. They are 11th in the WNBA. They have a 2-10 record, and their form, they have lost their last 9 games. It's tough. It's tough, and Kaz, I'm going to allow you the floor to explain why.
It's all right. It is tough. Losing 9 games in a row is tough. I think this shows. So this shows the impact that Kennedy Carter, who I like to talk about every week, has had on the Atlanta Dream. Without her, the team just doesn't kind of come together. Although last night we did see Courtney Williams score 30 and Bernard Delaney score 35. But I was looking into the loss margins. So they won 2 games with Kennedy Carter and they lost 5 games with her. Those 5 losses, they were averaging a loss by about 12 points. Without her, they're averaging a loss by 22 points. So whilst losing by 12 obviously is not great, that shows the impact that she's having. And when you look at those games, they lost to Seattle by 1 in that ridiculously close game. The only kind of blowout they had in those 5 games she played was against Vegas by 30. So I just think that shows the impact. And if she can come back like she's aiming to next week and work on that, I don't think they've got the chance to make the playoffs anymore. It is mathematically possible, but I just think they're probably a bit too far away from that. But Courtney Williams has talked about it. She said, this is a bit of a building year. And if they keep this core together, I think, they're going to be onto something really good. We've seen really standout performances from Courtney Williams and Bernard Delaney, Monique Billings. They just need a little bit something extra. And when, Carter's got the experience of 2 or 3 years as well, I think they're going to be a really dangerous team soon. But they're a bit iffy at the moment.
All right, Mikey, from a coaching point of view, what have you seen with Atlanta?
I think obviously the one thing that jumps out is obviously again another team that struggled, another team that's lost their impact rookie player with Carter. And Atlanta are interesting because actually a lot of their problems have been on the defensive end, which is not something we maybe expected going into the season. Offensively, they've had moments where they've struggled to score, but actually they've done really well. And in spot-up situations this year, I think they've shot the ball well. But defensively is where the issue's been, and they've given up 48% shooting on the year, and they're last in the league in points per possession. So they allow over a point per possession. They're the only team in the league to do that. Atlanta, a lot of Atlanta struggles have been on the defensive end, and it's hard to put a finger on it because it just seems like it's almost like inconsistency. Some games to struggle on the perimeter and allowing too much catch and shoot, and then other games who really struggle to protect the paint and give up a lot of dribble drive opportunities. So it's kind of been a bit of a weird one that they've been inconsistent. And as much as losing Carter's been an issue for them offensively, it is the other end of the floor where they've really struggled to be consistent, and I think that's led to a couple of those close losses.
Yeah, the thing that's stood out and interested me is they're not too terrible in terms of their point scoring. They average 80 points a game. They are up there in terms of, so they're a playoff team in terms of how they score, or at least their scoring, but they just don't seem to be able to get it done on the defensive end. Another thing about this team is, for me, I think they're literally where's my hand? 2 players away. Bring back Kennedy Carter, obviously, but add literally just one more piece, and you've got a really solid team there. You've got a number of a number of players that played in the finals last year. You've got loads of young talent coming through. You've got, the person who's going to finish second behind Crystal Dangerfield for Rookie of the Year. Ooh. Possibly. But yeah, you've got one of the real standouts for Rookie of the Year. They're really, really close. I'm really excited to see what they do next year. Again, another one like New York Liberty, a really big learning year, but exciting things ahead for the Atlanta Dream. Anything else?
I think the obvious thing is Bernard Delaney is her jump and her improvement's been remarkable. She's up to 17 points a game this season, shooting 50% from the floor, 40% from three. And I know we'll touch upon it a little bit later, but she's definitely in the running, if not probably the favourite right now for most improved. And that was kind of one of the questions of who was going to be able to consistently score for Atlanta outside of Carter, and Laney's been the answer. And the improvement she's made this year has been really impressive.
And she's a player that was waived in April by Indiana. So they must be kicking themselves.
Well, possibly. We'll get to them, but yeah, maybe. A player that's really stood out to me, along with Monique Billings, obviously. 2 players that have really stuck out to me. Hence Bernard Delaney was on my graphic that I made a couple weeks ago. Any more with Atlanta? Oh, sorry, we're not all Michael Hansen Morris.
Let's get Kennedy Carter back. Let's fix her ankles and get her back next week. That's all I want.
Well, she should be. Yeah, I was going to say she should be. It was a 2-week. She was out for 2 weeks.
So it would be this Monday. Not that I'm counting down the days or anything. But
the minute, is that what that's on that door? Are they scratches? She's coming back. All right.
So I think Wednesday's game would be the first one she could play.
All right, wonderful.
If she's back.
Well, hoping she's back 100% healthy, and that ankle is going to see her through the remainder of the year. Shall we move on to Dallas, people? Yeah, the Dallas Wings. They are 10th in the WNBA. They have a 4-8 record, and they have a form of they lost their last game, but they are still well within the playoff hunt. They could make the 8th seed, and I think that would be a fun thing to happen. That's all. That's all my opinion on Dallas. Mikey, let's kick off with you. The Dallas Wings.
Best rookie class of the year. I think that's kind of the overall takeaway for me with Dallas. We obviously, again, similar to New York, a lot of inexperience on the roster. I think they're still the youngest roster in the league, and they've had contributions from all of their first round performance this year. So obviously Safi went down a few games back now, but she was averaging 11-7 in her first year, was struggling with the three a little bit, but was making contributions on both ends. Bella Allery's come in recently and added some real rim protection for the Wings. And then Taisha Harris as well. Didn't play as much early on, but she's really grown into a role for Dallas. Suddenly up to 17, 18 minutes a game again as well. And that Dallas rookie group has really, really been impressive. The issue really is their consistent offense and their shot selection. I think they're still bottom in the league in assists per game. That may have changed, but they certainly struggled, and they take a lot of contested jump shots. And that's kind of really been their flaw, that they've not found easy open looks at times. And as you said, they're in the playoff mix, but I think their offense needs to continue to grow and create some more easy looks if they're really going to progress into the playoffs.
Yeah, just checking that number, and they are not bottom in assists per game. They are second bottom. They are 11th with 14.8 assists per game. The New York Liberty are bottom at 14.1 assists per game. Like your first comment was, well, they've got such a strong, they've got the best rookies. I'm like, well, they have like 4 first-round picks or something ridiculous. Like, I'd hope that some of them would land, but you're absolutely correct in what you say. They've all had a major impact, and who knows? I don't know. I'm conflicted in my head. Is it Satu? Is it Crystal? We don't know.
It's Carter.
It's okay. Every time with you. Every time. Go on, Kaz. Tell us what you've seen from this Dallas team.
I've liked what I've seen. I think they've been another team that have been fun to watch. They obviously shoot a lot, and they shoot a lot from the outside. The thing that I think that they need is a bit more of an inside presence. They don't tend to have anybody there that's, I don't know, just taking over. Who's going to go up against the Asia Wilsons, the Breonna Stewarts, Liz Cambage when she's back. I'd like to see a bit more of Astudu as well. She's not been playing the last few games. I'm not sure if she's got an injury. But the rotations, I'd like to see some of the bench players get a little bit more minutes. Brian Nagler's obviously got he's trying different rotations and things, but there seems to be a few players maybe that aren't getting as many minutes, and maybe when something's not working, then that's the time to try something new. Obviously they've got Arika Ogunbale, who's phenomenal at shooting. She's had a few games where she's maybe not been as efficient, but she's still scoring the points. But the games where she is efficient and she's shooting above 40%, she's really helping the team there. She's a really important part for them.
So thinking back to their win on Sunday, Marina Mabry just coming alive, and the progression through her season has been low minutes, low points, low minutes, low points. Then she's just all of a sudden, Aguilar's thrown her in at the deeper end, and she's really connected well with Arika Ogunbowale, like you mentioned there. And I think she was a big part of their win against Greg's Phoenix Mercury on Sunday night.
And Mabry played with Arika in college as well. I saw a post-game interview with them, and they were saying it was good because they were kind of in sync. They kind of knew each other's games, so that helped them.
Yeah, I think that they roomed in college, and they're very, very close friends. But I think if they didn't room in college, they might room now or something like that. Anything else from everybody's favorite Dallas Wings?
I think the other thing I've just been pouring through stats a little bit last couple of days is Dallas's transition game as well. Obviously, as the season's gone on, it's become a little bit harder to run, but when they do run, they're super effective. And I wonder if they're one of the teams that this condensed schedule's probably hurt the most, because they, in an ideal world, would like to play a little bit more high tempo, run a little bit more. So I wonder if that transition game's been affected, but they are still super efficient in there. And then it's really the half court where the offense has struggled, as I kind of alluded to earlier. But it'll be interesting to see as the season progresses, Dallas can find some more consistent transition points, or if they do really slow down, because that's kind of my everlasting memory from the early part of the year as well, was how quick they played, and they do seem to have dropped off the pace a little.
I mean, it's only natural with this schedule that, if anything's going to give, it is going to be pace and, just your energy during the game. How have you found the progress of your favourite rookie, Bella Alarie?
I wouldn't say favourite rookie.
Who's your favourite rookie?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that one. No, she's one of those players that's come in and filled a role for them. She's offered some rim protection, and she's, as much as like you've got Isabel Harrison, Satu, probably more natural post players. Bella's really come in, used her length. I think a couple of games now she's got two or three blocks in the same game, but she's really struggled to find that consistency on the offensive end in terms of her role. Obviously, she's got that range to extend to the three, but we've not really seen that a lot from her. And it just feels like the way these Dallas teams run a little bit is, as Cal said, they're not really a huge post-scoring team, and the fact that that's not really type of Bella's game either. She's more of that sort of catch and shoot type playing that if she offered that, maybe she could be a little bit more diverse and give them a different option. But I think she's come in and done some really positive things. She actually leads the team in plus minus this year as well, which I was slightly surprised about, to be honest. But yeah, she's filled a role, and she's really solidified that rotation spot as that second big, especially with Thatu being out. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she progresses, and if she can find that more consistent ability to score, even if it's like 7-8 points a game on the offensive end.
I mean, leading the way with 1.2 blocks and 0.9 steals, doing it on the defensive end, surely, like you said. But yeah, 2.5 points per game. Definitely want to see an increase there. Any more on Dallas, or shall we move to Washington? Okay, we'll move. But before we do, Mikey's in the dark. What's happened there?
I do not know. I'll tell you when I'm fixed. You just carry on.
It's not me this week.
It's all Kaz. The joys of going live. Anyway, if you're watching this, firstly, thank you very much. If you're watching live, if you're watching on catch up or on demand, thank you for joining us here on Focus Hoops with the WNBA show. Leave a comment. Get a comment down below if it's live, if it's after the fact. We read them all, we respond to them all, and if you get them in live now, we can get them up and we can discuss what it is that you think, any questions you've got, any opinions you've got. Who do you think Michael Hansen-Morris's favourite rookie is, for example? How do you like his... Oh, he's got a hat now. What's happened to his headband? I thought it looked a bit different. Anyway, please get your comments in. We absolutely love reading and engaging with them. Also, shout out to the Twitch people. We're live on Twitch for the first time on the Split Focus podcast networks. Twitch. Washington. The Ishmael Fontaine Washington Mystics, 9th in the WNBA. They have a 4-7 record. They won a game. They have won in the form column. So that stems a 7-game losing streak for the Washington Mystics, which I don't think anybody at all saw coming from the way they started the season, because they started like an absolute house on fire. They were causing a ruckus. It was like, oh, well, they're not missing Deladon. Sorry. They're not missing Deladon. They'll be fine. You know, they're bossing it. And then all of a sudden, huge skid. But let's just check out the standings. They are still in the hunt for the 8th seed, maybe even the 7th seed, if they are able to get onto a bit of a run. But yeah, what have we seen from them so far? We're going to go to Kaz to kick us off with the Dallas chat. Sorry, Washington chat.
Sorry, they need some rebounding. The Washington, they need someone to get down there and rebound. When they started the season 3-0, I think that surprised a lot of people. I was saying before the season, I expected them not to maybe be as bad as people thought because of who they'd lost, because their players step up, and then they win those 3 games quite convincingly, and then they have this 7-game losing streak, and they just seem to flip. So I didn't expect them to be. I kind of expected them to be somewhere in the middle, not at an extreme. But they've just announced today, I think, that Ariel Powers will probably be out for the rest of the season now, which is a huge loss for them, because in the games where they won, she was a huge part of that, and that's going to be really difficult for them. They've got Maisha Hines-Allen, who's been having a great season, stepping it up from last year. She's definitely another most improved player contender, but they kind of don't really have. So last season they had great starters and a great bench, and this year the great bench players have become the starter players. But then who takes over those good bench spots? And I think that's where the problem has come this year. So they haven't got too deep a bench to go to, and especially with some injuries now, they're struggling quite a bit. They have just picked up Stella Johnson, who had a great game last night. I think she had 25 points. And they've also picked up Jackie Gemelos on a 7-day contract from Connecticut. And they've cut Essence Carson, who's gone to Connecticut. So maybe a bit of roster shuffle there. Maybe that helps. Maybe they start something again. But I do think that they need something inside. They need some rebounding.
Yeah, Shea Petty has also left the Mystics. She was waived. She's been picked up by, I want to say, Phoenix?
Yeah.
Yep, there we go. I thought I saw an orange uniform. I'm loving how quickly they turn that around and get them in their new gear. Mikey, Washington. So, yeah, again, what stood out to you?
How quickly a team in basketball's fortunes can change. You're looking at 3-0, everything kind of just like plain sailing. Knock off Seattle, and then suddenly, just like that, everything kind of just collapsed overnight. And we've touched upon it for multiple shows now. We couldn't quite figure out why things changed so quickly, and it really has been a bit of a surprise. Hines Allen started great, and then she's lost a little bit in the middle, and then the last few games she's come back again. Emma Meeseman's really struggled from the floor this year. I think she's shooting about 42%, and about 20% from three. So she's really struggled to be that consistent scoring that we thought maybe she was able to step up to. And I think the roster changes were much needed. And I think really now they're not looking at this year anymore. I think Ariel Powers potentially being shut down kind of shows that. I think she's maybe a week to 2 weeks away, and I think they're looking at it maybe saying it's just not worth it. And they don't have a draft pick next year either. They've traded all of them away, so really they're having to rely on. They've got this veteran core that will be there next year. Obviously, a lot of players come in back as well, but they're going to need to find some youth to supplement that roster because they don't have draft picks. So someone like Stella Johnson, someone like Sug Sutton, who they've just picked up, they're going to be auditioning these players now from these to try and find who can contribute to this roster in the long term and fill in as a rotation player next year. And I think we're going to kind of see. It'll be interesting to see how this long-term plan plays out of what they think their window is. Is it just this year they're going to have a down year, or are they looking 2-3 years down the line while they just try and restock and rebuild a little bit?
Yeah, it's first off, Dallas have their draft pick from New York. So, Dallas Wings, once again, they've got 1, 2, 3 first-round picks, their own, which is looking at like the 4th at the moment. And they've also got the 8th and the 3rd. So 3, 4, and 8. As it stands right now, that could all change. They've got Chicago's pick as well. Meeseman, I think we all expected her to really build on what was a brilliant season for her last year. Yes, off the bench. But super impressive. And the shooting from range, that's been way down. She just doesn't look like she's got that confidence in her shot, and she's not making them, but she's barely taking them. 2.2 shots per game from beyond the arc. I mean, what's happened there?
It's unusual, isn't it? Because it's not like she's not playing. It's not like they've got so many new players. She's not sure where she fits or how it works together. She'll have been playing like the women that are starting. She's going to have been doing that, and I'm really surprised that she's not picked up where she left off in the playoffs, and I'm not sure what the reason is really. I don't know if maybe Mikey, as a coach, have you got more of an insight into why that might be?
I mean, I suppose the one underlying thing is suddenly you're going from maybe 5th, 6th on the scouting report to number 1, number 2 at times, and obviously now you're going to be garnering a lot more attention from defenses. But yeah, her splits are just. Maybe it's just bubble life. Like, I mean, Dan said she only shooting 2 threes a game. That's what she shot the last 2 years. And this is the worst she's ever shot it by a lot. 2016 she was 45%. 2017 a bit of a down year, 32%. Last year she was at 42%, and now she's down to 25. So yeah, it is odd. And yeah, it's just a confidence thing. If she has a big game, maybe it will flow through. But really, Washington as a whole team, their offense has just been a little bit inconsistent. They've done an okay job in certain situations, but again, a lot of their scoring isn't through post-ups and stuff, and they do still have some size with Meeseman, with Hines Allen. Those are players that they can post up, but they've really struggled in that department. They've really struggled in transition. They've not looked to push the ball a lot this year, and when they have, they've not converted. And it's hard to say it's purely a confidence thing, but you do wonder if that during that losing streak they just suddenly just wanted to try and do too much, almost certain individuals tried to press the issue too much, and it just didn't quite click for them. But I know someone mentioned Stella Johnson. I think it's interesting that struggled to play in Chicago. A couple of she was pretty good at the weekend for the Mystics, and then yesterday first start, the leading scorer in college last year. And I think they were saying on broadcast she only had one Division One offer 5 years ago now to go to Ryder, and then all of a sudden last night 23 points, I want to say. And yeah, she was terrific last night. And that could be a real bright spark for them moving forward. And it'd be interesting to see if she can be an impact player for the Mystics for the rest of the year, because they still do have a playoff shot. And if they make the playoffs, they're not going to want to lie down and just hand over their title. They're going to fight. So it'll be interesting to see if they can have someone like Stella be a more consistent scorer and help out.
All right, let's move to the heart of American basketball, to the Indiana Fever. They are 8th. We are into the playoffs at the moment. 4-7 record. They have lost their last 2 games. They are, again, another very interesting team in a league full of interesting teams. Candice Dupree there. She always, at the moment, every time watching Candice Dupree, she just looks a bit annoyed. She just looks a bit ticked off at all times. And maybe this is how she plays the game, but it's like, I don't know. She just looks a bit narked. I mean, if results aren't quite going their way right now. These are one of those. There's a handful of teams in this league where we look at them. I certainly look at them and be like, oh yeah, you'll be easy top 6. Don't worry about it. And there's probably about 8 of those teams for me right now. But it's like, yeah, you're a top half team. But Indiana, for me, should be a very comfortable playoff team, and I'm not entirely sure why they've been struggling so badly. And I've not done the Michael Hansen Morris strength of schedule just yet. So I wonder if you have, and if not. But Kaz, we're going to kick off with you, as is tradition. Talk to us about what you've seen from the Indiana Fever.
So for me, the thing that kind of sticks out to them is the sort of the rebounds, the assists, the stats they're in. They're all in sort of between the 7th and 9th in the league in kind of everything. They don't seem to be doing anything particularly well, and they're not doing anything terribly bad. They're just sort of in the middle, and they need something to push them over there. Erica Wheeler's still not in the bubble, and I think that she would be just a shot in the arm for them if she can make it. I'm not sure how much longer we're going to have to wait, whether she's going to be able to join them, because it's been over 4 weeks now. But like Kelsey Mitchell and Tiffany Mitchell, they're having fantastic seasons. So's Candice Dupree. But they just seem like they need something extra, especially on defense. Like I said, they're not playing badly, but they just don't seem to be kind of playing great as well. They seem very middle of the road. Julie Allman's having a really good rookie season. I think she's leading rookies in assists, and she looks like a really positive spark. But yeah, they just need something to push them over the edge. And I think the injury report that was out today they have a lot of injuries at the moment. They've got Vivian's out with I want to say a knee injury, but their injury report looked quite. I think it had three players on it, so they're probably going to struggle a little bit unless they can get some players back.
We've just had what I can describe as a Michael Hansen Morris start update. Apparently, we all predicted that they'd get 8 wins or fewer. So, I mean, right now, that prediction's not looking. Actually, it's not looking terrible. If they keep their form. But I've since, again, as with a few things, I've since revised my opinion just a little bit. Yeah. I tell you one player that I have quite enjoyed watching on this team is Lauren Cox. I've enjoyed her game. Her story is amazing. She's the first WNBA player with type 1 diabetes to make the league. I believe that's the case. That's why she wears a bandage on her. I think it's her left arm for the
like Georgia
injury.
Jones.
Pardon?
Like Georgia Jones for the Mystics.
Yeah,
she has a
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So precisely for that reason. So really inspirational story. She's averaging 14 minutes a game, just 3 points, but rookie season, and she's just quietly growing into the league. Not a lot of buzz about her in terms of rookie of the year, but I think she's been a really solid contributor to this team. Mikey, what have you seen with this team?
Indiana cannot defend the pick and roll, and that's what it comes down to. This is a team that are second worst in defensive points per possession, and the majority of that is pick and roll. They are the worst team to deal with according to Synergy on their pick and roll, dealing with the ball handler, and the second worst with dealing with the roll. So that's kind of been the crux of Indiana's issue, that they have struggled against pick and roll. When you watch the games in person, you can see it. They're not always on the same page. Their switches at times hurt them, and they've never found a consistent way to guard it with success. So, anytime you're giving up a lot of pick and roll points, especially in a league that, especially in a lot of short clock situations, whether at end of quarters, end of games, or even if it's just a broken play offensively, a lot of teams do go to a pick and roll, and if you can't defend that, it's going to be a long night. So really, they need to fix that on the defensive end, and that's something that's maybe a bit of a surprise with Marianne Stanley coming in. Obviously, come from Washington, a strong defensive team, and that's just not translated for whatever reason. Whether that comes back to the problems they had a month ago with just getting into the bubble. A lot of players on the COVID list, and they had less prep time than the other teams, and they just weren't able to get all that defensive work in. And whether that's just catching up as one of the things they've not quite got as prepared as other teams. Obviously, they've got limited practice time in between games. But until they fix that, they're going to be really struggling to stop teams consistently, and it relies on everyone to contribute on the offensive end, and they've got that. To be fair, I think they've got 4 or 5 players that are in double digits. I'm glad Kaz mentioned Julie Alamond. I think she's probably the rookie that no one's really talked about. She's kind of flown under the radar, but she's shooting 51% from 3 on the year. As Kaz said, 5.5 assists per game. And she's done a really good job controlling the offense for Indiana. She's I think she's team high at just over 32 minutes. And she's not done anything spectacular, but she's just been really solid. And sometimes that's what you need for a point guard. Someone that can be solid. She's been relatively strong on the defensive end as well. She's been a real bright spot for them. And really impressive. But Kaz hit the nail on the head. Their depth is now being questioned. Tiffany Mitchell is another one that's out for tonight's game against Seattle. She's a second leading scorer at 14 a game. And they're kind of down to probably 7 or 8 fit players now. Unless they've added anyone in the last day or two that I've missed, they're kind of really down to the small bones. So I wonder if they're a team that might make to hit a couple more roster moves before the trade deadline next week.
I just want to pull you up on that. You didn't read my article for FocusHoops.com, clearly enough, the other day, where I was making the case for Crystal Dangerfield for Rookie of the Year. I know, controversial, because I have been a bit of a Satu supporter. But Julia Alamond, got to mention, as somebody who deserves a lot more attention of their own. So you're not wrong.
I did read it. I'm just talking about the league in general.
No, I know. No, she's been super impressive, and like you say, 5.5 assists per game. That ranks number 1 amongst all rookies, and like you say, unspectacular. But you don't need spectacular or stand out necessarily when you've got a roster like this. You need somebody to come in and do their job, and that's what Indiana looks like to me quite a lot. It's a team that they're just doing their job, as you outline, and speaking to coaches and players. They have no practice time. Practice is watch game film, shoot some shots. That's basically it. They're running a playoff schedule right now. I think even tougher than a playoff schedule, because in playoffs, sometimes you get 2 rest days. Some teams got their first rest day in 2 weeks on Monday, Tuesday. Okay, Connecticut Sun. Last year's beaten WNBA finalists, they find themselves in 7th position. They have a 5-7 record. They have a form of winning their last game. Well, this is a fun story because they started with an atrocious record. What did they go? 0-5? What was their record?
0-5.
0-5. They did take a while to get, and then all of a sudden, last 2 weeks, a switch has been flipped. The coach is on the bike. He had a haircut the other day as well. Good for him. And now they're really starting to kick into life and be the team that we expect. And to be fair, the team that we expected on the very first game of the season, where for 3 quarters and about 3 minutes, they looked like the best team on the planet, and then it all fell apart. So, Mikey, we're going to come direct to you if that's okay. Is that okay? It is okay. To just talk through the Connecticut Sun. What have you seen with this team, and where do you see them going?
Where do I see them going? I struggle to see them. I think maybe they can make the second round of the playoffs if the matchup comes right. But really, they're a team that's quite heavily reliant on 3 or 4 players to produce for them. And if maybe 2 of those 4 don't, then this is a team that doesn't have the depth to contend. And I think that's probably what will hold them back from making another playoff run. Obviously, the talk the first 2-3 weeks for us was the amount of minutes being played, and it's still kind of that way. They've got Alyssa Thomas and Duana Bonner both playing over 33 minutes a night, and then after that, it's kind of like everyone else is kind of they've got Jasmine Thomas at 30, and then they don't really have anything off the bench that is consistent for them. I think Bria Holmes. Kind of sort of almost their best bench player, and she's kind of averaging like 6 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist a game, and that's kind of really where their struggles have been this year. So they don't have that depth, sort of in all areas. It's not just a guard problem. It's not a big problem. They just don't have that next level of contribution. And it's hard to say why the form turned around so much. It's kind of the reverse of what Washington did. It's hard to pinpoint exactly, but you just feel like they've just started to understand, especially the big players started to understand each other a little bit more in terms of where to get the ball on the floor, what spacing they need to open up some driving lanes, especially for Duana Bonner, to get downhill and get to the free throw line. Same with Alyssa Thomas, getting to the line. And it's been an interesting transformation because, yeah, we kind of questioned 0-5. We thought they'd win a couple, but it was almost looking at the question of, are they going to make a run late enough to make the playoffs? And now if you look at their schedule coming up, they've almost got through the tougher part of their schedule already. I think their next game's coming up. They've got a tough one with Vegas tonight, but after that, it kind of eases off a bit. They've got the Liberty, they've got I think they've got the Phoenix on the schedule, and I think they've got Dallas in their next 3. I think it is after Vegas. So they could really make a push to get to in around 500, but they do need that next level of contribution to make a deeper playoff run.
I like how you're referring to Dallas and Phoenix as winnable. But they are. You're right. They are winnable. They are 2 certainly winnable games. The way Phoenix have been playing, we'll get to them. Kaz, what stood out to you for the Sun?
I think just like Mikey says, they've had a really tough schedule to start with, and maybe now with the games they've got left, they won't be in as much trouble if they can't get production from the bench. But I think that's the theme, and that's a theme that we saw in the finals last year as well. Kurt Miller just doesn't. I don't know if he doesn't like to use his bench as much, or if the depth isn't there, like Mikey says. But if you've got players that aren't playing, and they're not getting the reps to play, how do they ever get into the position where you can call on them when you need them? Dewana Bonner has stood out to me as, you know, a potential MVP candidate this season. She's been playing phenomenally. The first week she was averaging 27.5 points, I think. She dropped off slightly in week 2. And then this week, obviously named player of the week, 19 points a game, 7.8 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 2.3 steals. And these are her best stats since 2012. And she's averaging the most rebounds in her career. So she's having a fantastic game. And she's obviously in sync with Alyssa Thomas and some of the players that have been there longer because she was the new piece they added in. I don't think they'll go further than maybe the first round of the playoffs because I just think that the depth is a problem. But I think they'll be in the playoffs. They'll be a tough team to come up against.
So they don't have their first round pick for next year. But thinking long term and thinking ahead, what do you two think about their prospects in the 2021 season? You know, obviously, assume that they bring back Jonquil Jones, who's missing this year because of the situation. What do we think about them moving forward?
Have they got their draft pick this year?
They've got their second round draft pick.
Okay.
They've got 2 second round picks. At the moment, they've got 14 and 21. But again, that's all open to change. Okay.
So yeah, if they can pick up someone, you know, like a Crystal Dangerfield, a diamond in the rough that they've found, because they need to extend that bench and they need some more depth and they need some players that they're going to be able to come off and rely on, just come off the bench, rely on them to score some points and support that team. So whether that's through trades, through clever draft picks, things like that.
Mikey, final word on Atlanta.
Oh,
Connecticut.
Yeah, I think Kaz hit it right. Like they've not lost a lot. And with the emergence of Clarendon in New York, I wonder if that's one they wish had held on to the way she's progressed this year. But they've only lost Jonquil Jones. They've not got anyone else really to come back in. A lot of teams are missing 2-3 pieces. So you do wonder if this is kind of where their norm's going to be. Just above 500 type of team, I think, is possibly where they might end up. But again, it all depends on what cap room and what moves they make in free agency. But I feel like they do need to bulk up and become a little bit deeper to really challenge the top teams.
Okay. Excuse me. We are at the midway stage of our podcast today. So as I always want to do, I'm going to talk about 2 things. First off, this is a little plug for a company who are absolutely not giving me any money or paying me in any way. Though I did say to them, because they gave me amazing customer service, I would mention them. I keep looking at my wrist. I have a little, it's called a Notch. And somebody said it's kind of like a Pandora for runners. And as you know, I've been doing a lot of running lately. I got myself a little Couch to 5K graduate thing. And I think they're pretty cool, though I stuffed up my sizing. It's way too big for me. I put out a message and they were like, hey, send it back. We'll send you a new one your size. We'll get you sorted. So I just want to say big shout out to the good people at Notch, available at mynotch.co.uk. And yeah, if you're a runner, an athlete of any kind, or you just like to look cool, then go and check them out. Again, not funded, not a sponsor, but I was really impressed with the excellent customer service that I got from them. And I just wanted to share that because it's nice to pay it forward. Also, as always, Ashley Smith, Miss Caribbean UK finalist in the year 2020. She is raising money as part of her campaign for the Perfect Day Foundation charity. The initiative will support female netball players in Zambia. It aims to address key challenges by teaching girls and young women new skills in order for them to create several products made from African wax print material, as well as educate them in the process of running their own small business to help fund their school fees and provide family support amongst other necessities. There's a link down below to the Perfect Day Foundation charity down there. Ash, she is one of our commentators at FocusHoops.com. She is representing the beautiful Cayman Islands, and she is doing an amazing thing, raising money for girls in Zambia. I say it every time, but the emancipation of women and girls is so important. They need education. They need the freedom that these skills and the money that they're going to raise from having these skills is going to provide them. It's going to improve life chances. So if you've got a little bit of money, check out Ash's campaign. They're nearly at their goal, which is fantastic. So give it a look because it's a really important, special thing. So big shout out to Ashley Smith, magnificent commentator at Focus Hoops, and the Cayman Islands entry for the Miss Caribbean UK finalist. And hey, if you want to go and find out the link to that, I'm not going to post that because I don't know. But maybe look up Ash's social medias. We've put it all over our Twitter and Facebook. Maybe vote Ash to win the whole competition. Miss Caribbean UK. We're back. I'm telling you, Notch is pretty cool. I'm just saying. All right, we move on. The Greg Mpofu Phoenix Mercury, 6th in the WNBA. They have a 6-6 record. They have lost their last 2 games. Now, and again, I speak to the people watching this. Again, thank you so much for watching this. If you're live, if you're on demand, if you're on the bus, if you're on the train, wherever you are, whatever you do, get in your comments into that comment section. Tell us what you make of this Phoenix Mercury team, either live or later on. We'll read it, we'll respond to it, because I want to know what people think about this incredibly talented, incredibly gifted basketball team. They've got Diana Taurasi, arguably the greatest player of all time. They've got Skylar Diggins-Smith. They've got Brittany Griner, one of the most dominant players to ever play the game. And they just can't get it together. Kaz, help us out. Give us that insight that we need.
I can't. They're so confusing. I feel like the record completely sums them up. They've won 6 and they've lost 6 because which team are you going to get? Is it going to be the Phoenix that's together and works well, or is it going to be this mess that doesn't? And it's so odd when you consider, the talent that they have on that roster. Like you say, they're loaded. They should be better than this. Their defense in particular should be better than this. They're averaging 87.8 points a game, but they're giving up 85.8 points a game, which just you can eke out a win out of that, but you need to double down on it. I did see an interview with Diana Taurasi earlier, and she was saying, we were talking back about the LA game, which was the first game of the season, and she said that was the first time all 10 players had been on the court at the same time. So they hadn't had the practice time to get to know each other and things like that. So that's obviously had an effect. But they just don't. I mean, they'll seem in sync one game and then not the next game, and it's baffling, really. A bright spot, though, is Bria Hartley coming off the bench, 15 points a game, 3.1 assists. She was a starter last year for the majority of the games in New York, but she's really adapted to that role off the bench, and she's a really good, she's a really bright spark there. But they need some more consistency. Absolutely.
Oh man, Greg and Pofu, good timing. Yeah, Team Jekyll and Hyde, absolutely. Thank you for your input there, Greg. Yeah, their plus minus as a team is plus 1.1. Now, Mikey, you've been trying to sell me on this. Now, the importance of plus minus 1.1. What does that tell? What does that tell you as a team?
They're pretty much exactly what their record should be. That's as simple as that. It means they've slightly outscored other teams, but not by a lot. And that's kind of what you get with a team that's in and around 500. And Kaz hit the nail on the head. They don't make sense. Like they've got talent. They've not got the greatest talent in depth, but they've got a lot of players that can contribute 10 to 15 minutes and not really hurt them. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, we go back to last night and the Sparks game. I'm just going to pull it up on my phone. Half time, Brianna Turner 4-4 from the floor. Alana Smith 3 of 3 from the floor. And then Griner 1 of 6. Diggins Smith 1 of 5. Taurasi 1 of 4. Hartley 0 of 2. And that's how you get yourself 26 points and a half. And it's just like you don't expect them all to have an off night. Like, okay, maybe Tarati gets a bit of an exception because that was the first game back, having missed I think 3 straight games. But it doesn't make sense that Griner, Diggins, Smith, Hartley can all have an off night together, and they've just not. I don't know if it's chemistry. I don't know if it's something stylistically that they've changed from last year, but it's just not clicked for them. And could you see them finishing at 13 wins and going like 11? What's that? 7-3 to finish? Not really.
No, I don't.
You kind of see them being a 6-4, 5-5 team to finish. I mean, I haven't looked at the schedule, so maybe the schedule does lighten up a little bit, but or maybe it gets tougher. But you kind of feel they are a 500 team this year, maybe just above. And yeah, it just, for whatever reason, it's not quite worked despite having a consistent offensive output. And they've got 4 players averaging 15 or more a game, and they're third in the league in points per possession, but they've just not managed to put a whole game together.
So I'm just going to very quickly read their next couple of games. Minnesota, Washington, Connecticut, Washington, Minnesota, Vegas, Phoenix, Indiana, New York, Connecticut, Seattle. That is not an easy schedule.
It's not. And maybe part of the problem is, so Phoenix, I believe, were the oldest team in the league, and maybe this is some of the rest factor coming in, the one day between games. Maybe it's having a more of an effect than you'd expect to see, to give them an out.
Yeah. Well, Phoenix superfan Greg Mpofu says, don't underestimate how much they miss having Penny Taylor around the team, not least of all Taurasi. So, maybe it's that simple. Like, the impact of Penny Taylor not being around has caused them to lose some of it. And that's why they are. And that was only in the league.
So that was only a few weeks before the season, wasn't it? So I suppose they've not really had time to maybe replace her in the way that they would in normal circumstances.
Is there any more on Phoenix for right now?
Brittany Griner, you wanted to be an MVP, you need to step up right now. She's got 1 double-double on the season, which you just struggle to understand. She's shooting about 50% from the floor. But she's just not had that huge step. And I think we'll talk about MVPs towards the end of the show. But she's not even in the conversation right now. The top 6-8 players in the wobble, and that for someone that wanted to make that step up, she's got another 10 games to do it. But if Phoenix really want to push themselves to being a conference semi-final type playoff team, that they need someone like Griner to take a huge leap, really.
I mean, it's the wild thing with Brittany Griner is why she should be the most dominant player in the league. I just because we've seen her do it. This is it. This isn't just like, oh, you're big, you should be, proper dominant. She's shown us exactly what she can do. And I don't understand, like you say, Mikey, why we're not seeing that. The scoring from the floor is good. The 40%, she's averaging, 17.7 points per game, so that's great. But the rebounds are down at 7.5. And I say down because she's 6'8", and she's a really good rebounder. But it's just, I don't know. It's just not quite clicking. It's not quite cooking. We're going to see if Greg comes in with anything on Griner. Again, he has suggested a couple of times that she's still struggling, maybe with a bit of injury or a lack of fitness. I mean, that's not reflected in the numbers she's playing. She's playing nearly 32 minutes a game, 31.8. So, I don't know, just from a numbers point of view, they're good, but they're not spectacular, which is what we really expect from, like you say, Mikey, somebody who wanted to be MVP. I had in the back of my mind at the start of the season in the MVP conversation, and it's just not quite happened.
What about the lack of atmosphere without the crowds? Because we know Phoenix are a team that other teams don't like to come into and play. And we know that when Taurasi and Griner go to other arenas, they're kind of a bit like the baddies, aren't they? People like to root against Phoenix and they feed off that. Maybe that's having a little bit of an effect, that there's no kind, they need the outside energy to feed off and to go with it.
I mean, that's an interesting point. How is, again, maybe this is just a bubble thing. I'm not too sure how I can find the home and away split. Hang on a second.
I mean, I think the other way you're finding that, Darren, like, just to sum up kind of where their form is, they beat Chicago by 10 early August, and a week later they lost to Chicago by 18. That's a 28-point swing in the space of, it was 6 days. And that kind of just sums up Phoenix, that they've just not had that consistency and ability to really put their authority on any game.
They are at home 3-2, and on the road they are 3-4. So it's not. I don't think that's hugely significant. And again, it sounds stupid. We're talking about home and away. They play in the same building. There are no fans, but there is a DJ, and that DJ and the occasional different ad boards or whatever they've got seems to be making a difference. There is still home court advantage in a central venue league. I love to see it. Let's move on to Chicago. Oh, Mikey, go ahead.
I say the home away split is about 62-38, I think, or something ridiculous. I checked it a couple of days ago. So there is a difference somehow in the wobble, that home teams are winning just over six out of 10 games, where you would expect it to be around 50-50. So for whatever reason, there is a split.
I'm very excited to see how that looks at the end of the season, because that is going to be one of the most interesting, fascinating things. Because in other sports, like in football over in this country, in the UK, they said that the home field advantage had been had that like come down a little bit. Or am I just making things up? I might just be making things up. Let me know in the comments. Chicago Sky, 5th in the WNBA. They have an 8-4 record. Their form is they have won their last 2 games. Also, I've been meaning to ask this for ages. Is Azura Stevens as nice a human being as she looks like she is? Because she just looks like she might be the nicest person who's ever lived. Great basketball player, but also just seems like a top human being. So, I just wanted to say that. I need to know. I'm going to have to find somebody who might know these things. Chicago, 8-4. Really solid record. I think we know who they are. Now, I'm starting to lean into the Ishmael Fontaine territory of they're not quite it. They're not quite that team. They want to be a championship team. And Diamond DeShields wanted to be in the conversation, for example, for the MVP conversation. I don't think that this Chicago Sky team, I don't think they're quite there this year. But again, I think if they're able to keep their core, I think they've got some picks next season. They have the 7 seed next season as it stands from Phoenix. So, it's things. I think this is a very bright future for this team. Obviously, they've got one of the best coaches in the league. And I don't think Van der Sloot or Quigley are looking at hanging them up anytime soon. So, this team's going in the right direction. I don't think this season is going to be their season when it's all said and done. Michael.
Half their games have been 1-possession games.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, so 6 of the 12 games, 6 have been decided by 2 or 3 points. So that says a lot about Chicago, and they've won 4 of those, lost 2. So
what does that say about Chicago?
They know if it comes down to a close game, you're going to back them right now, and we kind of saw that Tuesday night. The days kind of merged, but the last game against Vegas, they just kind of they made a couple of mistakes, but they just out executed Vegas down the stretch, and I think some of that was because they've been used to 1-possession games, and it is that with limited practice time and things, there are going to be some reliance to put things in. But you heard the audio from the sideline, and after the game, Chicago put a new set in, and we're working on it. And James Wade rolls with it, 14 seconds to go, goes to the set, and they get a wide open layup. And little things like that are going to matter in the playoffs. We expect a lot of the playoff games to be tight. And if they can replicate that, it's important. They have had some big wins as well. They beat Phoenix by 18. They blew out Atlanta probably the start of this week, a couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah, it's Sunday night.
Yeah. They destroyed Atlanta. So they showed some glimpses of brilliance.
They also lost by.
You feel like
they've also lost by 10 to Phoenix. They lost by 3 to the Sun. So again, that's a one and a bit possession game. I hear what you're saying, but for me, and again, I'm sort of piggybacking on what Ish said, but it makes sense. The experience of being in some close games is super important. But there are some teams here that you'd expect them to be knocking over a lot easier, and they're expending a lot of energy, you would imagine, in this format. Set and tell me if I'm wrong. But you're putting in a lot of energy, both physical and emotional, to knock over some teams where they should just be really doing away with them easily, resting up their players, resting up their legs and their mentality, their mental strength for the challenge that is going to come in the second half. Maybe I'm talking rubbish, but it seems a bit too difficult for them to be a real contender for this season. Again, looking forward, I reckon they're in good shape, but this year.
But they pull out the result of beating Vegas on Tuesday night, who I think maybe you can argue are probably the second favourites to make the finals. So I think the other thing that we've kind of missed on the show thing is that they were missing Dawson for half the season. She's starting to work her way back now. She missed, I think, 7 games. She played the opening day, went down, and then missed the next 7. So she's starting to find the legs. She was huge down the stretch. I don't know if it was her that set the screen on Arsha Wilson, but whoever did absolutely destroyed her. It was one of the hardest screens I've seen in WNBA all year. And I wonder if maybe they'll be short, but they're potentially one move away. And trade deadline's another 8 days away. And I wonder if they're looking at it and going, what can we change and tweak? Do we give up a first round pick and add someone to the roster that suddenly makes them a finals contender? Because they're close. And a lot of these teams we're going to talk about in the next segment coming up are all teams that could make the final. So you're suddenly looking at a roster move by a team here or there could make all the difference in the long run.
Greg is back in the comments. And again, you could be too. If you're watching this live, if you're watching on demand, get your comments in. We'll respond to them. Or, like Greg here, we'll get talking about them live on the show. There are a lot of close games because they score well, but they're a bit of a sieve going the other way. Yes, we haven't checked out Michael's plus minus just yet. It looks like he's on the case. Kaz, let's hear what you have to say whilst Mikey looks at numbers.
I think had we had a 100% healthy Diamond DeShields this season, and as Mikey says, Steph Dawson, they probably would have been running over teams that we'd be expecting them to. That's really hurt them, I think. Not really hurt them. It's definitely had an impact, and maybe they've, like you say, that's an eye to next year. You're going to have Ruthie Hebard with a year's worth of experience. She's had a few, quietly good games. She's not been as much in the conversation with the rookies, but she's had some solid good games and getting the experience there. With Dawson back, that's really going to help them, but I still think they need something else a bit more inside, a bit more of an inside presence, because they are a very shooting heavy team, and we see that. And then what do you do if that's not dropping? You need something else to go to. But James Wade is a great coach, like Mikey's saying. Yeah. You practice a play in the morning and then you execute it and it works 8 hours later. that's perfect. And that's because they've got a core of a team that know each other so well and they've played together so well. They've not had many moves. And Diamond's fit in well. And when she's been playing well. It's just she's not 100% healthy.
Before we go to Mikey's stat corner, and again, yeah, she's a fantastic player and fully fit. We would expect to see her right at the top of that. I think we've seen glimpses of that corner she's taken since All-Star last year, and that's only going to grow and improve. Their second half of the season, they face Liberty, Fever. They face both of these teams twice in the next 4 games. So I reckon 3-1 from those. Then they've got Storm, Lynx, Mystics, Sparks, Dream, and then they finish with a road trip to Dallas Wings. I'm in team. I can't tell if this is a good schedule or a really tough schedule.
I think it's good. I think it's good for them.
You think it's good?
I think they've gone through the tough games.
I think the next 4 games are good. But then we've got Storm, Lynx, a resurgent Mystics, Sparks, and then Dream. So that should be fairly comfortable. And then Dallas Wings, who, they're going to be competing for a 7th seed here. So they're going to, we're going to see what they bring. I enjoy the Dallas Wings, okay? I said it. Are you happy now, Michael? I enjoy watching the Dallas Wings professional basketball team. Thank you. Mikey, stats corner.
Chicago has the second best defense in the half court in points per possession, which is interesting because I kind of see where Grove's coming from. You feel like their games are more high scoring. So I think the issue is that they're turning over the ball a lot. And they're actually they turn the ball over second most in the league outside only of New York. So I think their turnovers are kind of potentially leading to transition points. I'd need to spend a bit more time going into in detail, but I can kind of see that in a way. And the actual issue for me with turnovers has been when Courtney Vandersloot has left the court. And that's maybe a hole that they do look to address as a backup point guard because Vandersloot has been really good for them this year, shooting nearly 50% from the floor. She's got an outside shot, Darren, at the elusive 50, 40, 90 club. I don't want to say it.
Oh, you said it.
She's shooting 49% from 2, 40 and a half from 3, and 87 and a half from the free throw line. So she's not far off, and she's averaging 8.6 assists per game. And she is someone that has kind of in the last week, and probably rightly so, is being talked about as an outside shot for MVP. And I think you can see why, because she also seems to have taken a bit of a jump for me from what I've seen on the defensive end. She seems a lot more active this year. She seems to contain the dribbler a little bit better. And she really has taken this step to kind of be this leader on this team. Even though they've got the experience of Quickly, she's really kind of taken over this leadership bit. And if she keeps playing well, Chicago are always going to be in games for me.
Okay. I've just made a note of that. The Vandersloot 50, 40, 90 watch. We're going to update you every single week. All right. Any more on Chicago? We move to the Minnesota Lynx, 4th in the WNBA, 8-3 record. They have won their last 2 games, and they very well might have the Rookie of the Year. And if you want to know the case for Crystal Dangerfield as Rookie of the Year, then you can get yourself, after we've finished here, over to FocusHoops.com and give a read of the article about the second round pick that maybe, just maybe, might be Rookie of the Year. Kaz, I know that hurts you, but I'm going to leave that aside. Minnesota have been a bit of a weird one for me because they're just kind of, for the early part of the season, they're just kind of there. They was like, okay, it's Minnesota. They're just good. They're just dependable. They're just going to beat teams. Now we're getting into the real meaty part of the season. Do you see them with an outside chance of making the playoff finals, which is, I think, is the conversation that we should be having for these final 4 teams? Mikey's face is doing things. I don't know if he agrees or disagrees. But is that the conversation ultimately for these 4 teams now? can we see them making the playoff finals or the final?
Yeah, that's like I was thinking about it, and like, why not? Like I mentioned it with Chicago, I kind of grouped these the 2, 3, 5 currently is kind of very similar.
Yeah.
And Minnesota have done it with contributions from everyone, and that's been the really impressive thing. Lexi Brown's missed 2 or 3 games. Sylvia Fowles has missed 4 games now, and they've just had contributions from different people on the roster in different games, and they've done a lot of it on the defensive end of the floor. For me, that's kind of what stands out for Minnesota. Is they've outside of probably Seattle, they've probably got the best defense in the league, and they've been really consistent in. You always feel like if you can concede 75, give or take, that you've got a chance to win a game. And they've done a terrific job. And I know you've said Rookie of the Year. I think they've got Coach of the Year. And I don't think you can say it any other way. This is a team that we were questioning going into season. Are they even going to make 500? Have they got an outside shot of being jumped by a Dallas and Atlanta, of missing the playoffs? And we're now talking about this team potentially as a top 4 seed. And they've just been great. And the games they've lost have generally been close. And yeah, they've just been really impressive.
Kaz, what have you seen from the Lynx? I
totally agree with Mikey there that, you know, if someone's out, someone's stepping up, they can go to anyone. Nafisa Collier has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed watching her. And in her last 3 games, she had 65 points, 33 rebounds. She's shooting 50% from the field, 42% from 3, 80 from the free throw line. So she's probably not catching Vandersloot there. But like they've lost Sylvia Fowles indefinitely now. Odyssey Sims has come back, played a couple of games. I think she's questionable again. But it doesn't seem to be bothering them. And I think as well, as Mikey pointed out, that's Cheryl Reeve and that coaching experience, and that's the impact that she has on them. Crystal Dangerfield has been having some amazing games, and 16th pick in the draft. She, you know, should be a well-deserved Rookie of the Year. And if it's not Kennedy Carter, I'd like to see her have it. But she's really had an impact on the team, and to come in as a rookie and play the point, that's a really tough position for someone to come in and play. And she's doing it. She's got into a rhythm. She's got into a groove. She's, you know, scoring consistently. And yeah, like Mikey said, they're a consistent team, and they're just doing really well, surpassing a lot of people's expectations, I think. And imagine then adding Sylvia Fowles and Odyssey Sims back into that. You know, scary.
Yeah, and again, that's it. At the start of the season, I didn't see them in that way. I don't know if any of us did when we were talking about the Lynx. They were just sort of, they were clearly winning games. They were clearly impressive, and obviously Sylvia Fowles, you know, all-time rebounder. But in the recent 2.5 weeks, they've become, like you said, they've become a little bit scary. And I think every team in the league and these top 4 teams, they're all going to be looking at Minnesota being a bit scared. Certainly what they can do on the defensive end. I mean, in terms of scoring, Minnesota are 7th. They've got a plus 5.4. So, like you say, where they're making their difference is on the defensive end. Shall we move over to the Kaz Bullock Los Angeles Sparks?
I just want to jump in, just another one that kind of jumped out. Last night, obviously, you played Dallas, and I haven't quite heard much of the post game, but it was interesting that they've kind of forced Dallas, who have traditionally play with 1, if not 2 bigs on the floor, to go small. With Bridget Carlton playing the 5, Dallas kind of matched up and went with Katie Lou Samuelson at the 5. But the one that jumped out to me was their first-round draft pick, Micah Herbert Harrigan. I think it was probably a season high in minutes in just over 20. But her plus-minus, bearing in mind this is a 7-point win, was plus 27.
Whoa.
In 20 minutes. And she's someone that has kind of started to evolve. A bit of a slow start, wasn't in the rotation much early, and she's starting to grow. And if she's another one that can make this jump, she was picked I'm going to say, in the draft. She was their first round pick either way, but she was their first round pick, obviously, before Crystal. But to go plus 27 in a 7-point game is remarkable. And yeah, she'll be one to keep an eye on as well as another player that's kind of growing. And it's that just needed mentioning because that's one of the biggest differentials I've seen all season in the league.
That's an outrageous differential. She went. Who? Remind me of the name.
Herbert Harris.
Herbert Harrigan.
Oh yeah. She did go 6th. Sorry, I was getting I've still got the research from my Dangerfield piece in my head. I was thinking about how Seattle were slated to take her at 11, but they didn't. We move on to the Kaz Bullock Los Angeles Sparks. They are 3rd in the WNBA, 8-3 record. They have won their last 5 games, and Tia Cooper's shot on the slow-mo at the buzzer or at the end of the shot clock from the other day is just the best thing on the internet right now. What a basket that was. What a player. What a performer. Kaz, talk about your team.
They're looking really good at LA. They just seem such in sync. They had a couple of wobbles in the first, some of the first few games because I think they were alternating wins and losses. But the last few that they've been playing, they just look like they're playing so well together. They know where they're supposed to be. It's working. They're getting so much production off the bench from Raquana Williams. I think she had 7 threes the other night. You've got Brittany Sykes, Taya Cooper, Sydney Weiss from 3. Simone Augustus maybe hasn't been as productive as she has been in the first few games, but she's had a few load management rest days, I think. But they're really in sync. Candace Parker's looking as great as she always does. She's having one of her best productive seasons in the minutes that she's playing because she's only playing 27 minutes a game, and that's showing sort of how well the team's working and how much they're winning by sometimes, in that they don't need her to be playing 34, 35 minutes because they have other players that can come on. And, sometimes the game's over by that point, so they don't need her. And she's said that the difference that's made, the difference that she's found in the bubble is the lack of travel. And the effect that it has on her body, and she just says she feels so rested. She feels so much, better and ready to just go out and play. Their bench is leading the league in turnovers. In steals, causing turnovers. I think they had 22 against. Oh, I've forgotten whoever they played last two nights ago. Sorry, I've forgotten. Phoenix, that was it. But they are the worst rebounding team in the league, which is surprising. And Nekra Agumike's rebounds have gone down by about 4 a game. So they need to do something to address that. I was actually quite surprised when I read that because Candace Parker's nearly averaging a double-double with points and rebounds. But then you've usually got a few more players coming in. So they need to plug that gap a bit. I don't know what Derek Fisher's, if he's playing with some rotations a bit. But I think that's probably something they just need to work on just to kind of tip them over the edge a little bit.
Mikey.
Yeah, I mean, Kaz is spot on. They've kind of done it by committee. They've kind of managed to rotate. We've probably rotated as much as any team in the league. Sometimes too much even for us to watch. I think we all wanted Parker to get that triple-double a week and a half ago. But yeah, they just seem really solid. They don't seem to be great in one area. They just seem to be good in pretty much everything. Like, it's hard to really say they've got a major weakness, but it's also hard to say they're the best in the league at anything. So yeah, they've just been really consistent. And again, you kind of feel like they're maybe one piece away from being a true title contender, but they're going to be there or thereabouts to have a shot to make the finals, and that's kind of where this roster wanted to be, was continuing to build on last year. And Derek Fisher's done a really nice job of getting everyone in, settled in the rotation, and I think as the season progresses, he might slim it down a little bit, but what he's done so far seems to be working for them.
He said he was using analytics to try and figure out the best rotations in an interview a couple of weeks ago, which is quite interesting.
I mean,
just
aren't most coaches doing that? I mean, I don't know.
Oh, he'd got like some crazy, like super excessive thing. I think people were questioning it.
There'll be things like you it depends what data he's looking at. It'd be interesting to know exactly what he's looking at, but he might well be looking at stuff like lineups, and it is difficult to pick your best lineup at times. You rotate through a lot. Are you better with? You can get 4 players work, and then suddenly adding that 5th player can make all the difference between it being a great lineup and a bad lineup. So I wouldn't be surprised. Like Onigwe dropped out of the rotation. She's come back in and started to play a little bit. And things like that. So he'll be tinkering, and that's the thing. He's kind of got the luxury to do that with the record they've got. That they've played kind of everyone once, so they've kind of got an average schedule through, and the next few look on paper a little bit lighter. They don't have any of the big hitters coming up for a while, so he'll got that time to experiment, and why not?
Very quickly, I'm very conscious of time. Are they a threat to Seattle? Let's just ask the question. Are they a threat to Seattle?
Over a series as currently constructed, I think they will struggle. I think the rebounding is something that potentially is an issue for them over a long series. For me, at least.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Candice Parker is the second leading rebounder in the league, but beyond that, it's nothing. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's really not that impressive. And that's such a huge part of one of the fundamentals of basketball. Ishmael Fontaine, by the way, was in the comments. Good to see you there. Plus minus is the thing, guys. So can't argue with that. Okay, we move on to the Las Vegas Aces, second in the WNBA, an 8-3 record. Their form is they have lost their last game, and I think every one of their losses has been within a possession. Am I right in saying that? I know 2 of them have, because both of them were to Sky, and they basically lost on the last play of the game. And I forget who that other loss was, but I assume it was the Storm, and I assume it was close.
I'm just trying to pull it up. Have they played Seattle? I don't think they've played Seattle yet. I think we get that this week.
They're not. Of course we do. We get that twice this week. We get it on Saturday and Thursday. They lost the... Of course they did.
Yeah. No, 95-102.
Okay, so that's the one that wasn't within a possession. So that's what interests me with this team, and I really like this Vegas team. I think they are really fun to watch. They're just full of talent. I mean, just look at those 5 players there, for goodness sakes. Asia Wilson, for me, probably, if I had a vote, and I don't, but maybe I should, WNBA, she'd get my vote for MVP. I think she's absolutely astonishing at what she does. But it's super talented team, super fun. That loss, though, the losses that they've accrued, and there's only 3 of them, that does worry me a little bit against the Storm, who at the moment are an absolute juggernaut. And over 5 games, I'm really excited to see how they match up. And what a treat for us all. Saturday and then Thursday, we get to see these 2 go head to head. Let's before we get into any more on these 2 predictions, Kaz, who's winning these 2 games?
They're taking 1 each.
Kaz is 1-1.
Seattle wins Saturday. Vegas win Thursday.
Okay, all right. Mikey.
2-0 Seattle.
Oh, that is bold. That is bold, son. What is Daz saying? Daz is just going to be. He's going to say it. 2-0 to Vegas. Ooh. Does he believe it? He's not too sure, but he will do by the time we're in the group chat on Saturday night. either way, super exciting. What is not so exciting is the haircut of Bill Lambert. He's had a trim. He now looks like respectable Bill rather than headband Bill. So disappointing, but good for him and good for the Mountain. I think the Mountain Dew Spa, I think it's called, in there. Looks very, very nice. Holly Roll was going around. Very exciting. So good for the WNBA. Kaz, quickly, Vegas. What stood out to you?
Well, I hope they don't lose their. They don't go on a losing streak now that Bill's cut his hair. Maybe the power was in his hair. Asia Wilson's been fantastic. She's definitely in the MVP conversation. And I think sometimes with Asia, I don't know about you, I forget she's in her third year. She's a third-year player. Yeah. She's, she just got that. She just carries herself with that much experience, and the way she plays, you just think she's been in the league for ages. And she has such an effect on a team and brings everyone together. They've got such a strong core as well. So they've got De'Erica Hamby coming off the bench, 6th Woman of the Year last year, possible contender again this year. Kayla McBride's found a stroke. She was struggling a bit from 3 to start with, but especially in that game against Chicago, she hit a big 3 in the last 17 seconds. Jackie Young, Danielle Robinson. The thing that they are struggling with still is the threes. They're not taking threes, and they don't have too many players outside Kayla McBride and maybe Jackie Young who are going to shoot them. And I think at some point it becomes a numbers game. If you're going to play a team like Chicago, they're going to outshoot you from 3, and it's just basic maths, isn't it? And that just worries me a bit against a team like Seattle, that they need to add some sort of firepower from the outside, because inside, no problem at all. It's but Chicago.
Sorry, go on, Cass. Carry on.
Chicago held Asia to, was it 13 points? One of her lowest games this season. They seem to find a way to stop her a bit. So I don't know if other teams have been watching that. But I expect her to come back from the next game and dominate.
Mikey?
Yeah, Vegas have just been really solid. I think we're kind of learning to grow that anytime Chicago and Vegas play, we're just going to expect a 1-possession game. So you kind of almost throw them out. Like, the only blemish is that Phoenix game, and that was just an odd night. You don't see Vegas giving up 100 very much. And I think Kaz's worry is my worry, that at some point, if a team gets hot from 3 against them, you are trying to consistently trade 2s for 3s, and at some point that might catch up to the odd game. But across the series, this team's set up for sustainability. They've got 5 players in double-digit scoring. Bill's able to trust 9 players consistently with minutes on the roster, and I think they're going to be there or thereabouts. And I'm really looking forward to these matches with Seattle, because I think it will tell us a lot about where both teams are.
Just thinking about the Chicago and Vegas, could that be a semi-final berth, couldn't it? They could meet in this. If let's just say that the standings end as they are, there they are. That could be a 2 versus 4. That would be a semi-final berth, wouldn't it? Assuming they didn't make it through.
You'd expect 2v3, but it's so tight in this mid-pack. You've got Chicago, you've got Minnesota, you've got Vegas. I feel like I'm missing someone. Sparks. Like that 2-5 race is so tight right now. We're talking half a game really, with Chicago playing the extra game, that could flip flop. And is anyone not signing up for a Vegas Chicago series to watch?
Oh, give me that.
I think that's what everyone wants to see as well. These games have been really exciting. I thought you rolled away around the rim of that being an M1 and Vegas taking the lead from looking almost dead. So it's going to be really exciting to see, and but a lot can change from now and then. Vegas have maybe been the team that haven't been hit by injuries really. Everyone's played
at least as they've been playing, like pre-season, and they said it a lot, and it showed early doors. They didn't have a roster. They had 6, sometimes 4 players in training. So early doors, they've got all that out of the way, maybe.
But for the top 9 in rotation, only Lindsay Allen's missed 1 game. Everyone else has played every game. So suddenly, if are they one injury away from suddenly being a 5 seed, and then the complexion completely changes. And obviously, you wish everyone was healthy, but we all know it's basketball. At some point, someone's going to have to miss 3 games. So if Wilson, if a McCottry or a Hamby misses 3 or 4 games, are Vegas able to deal with it? And that's the one thing we don't know. I expect they would, but you just never know.
Now, just looking at Vegas's second half schedule, and it is tough. They've got Sun, who resurgent. We don't know quite who they are every night, but they're a good team. Storm, Dallas Wings. I mean, they're a good team. They beat Phoenix over there. Storm again, Liberty. So that should be a formality. Mercury've already beaten them and beaten them well this year. Then the Sun again. Dream. So again, should be a bit of a formality. Indiana, they played them pretty tough when they faced a couple of weeks ago. Then the Lynx, and then they finish off the season with the Sparks. So for me, and I could be wrong, but for me, that looks like a really quite a challenging schedule with a few formality games in there, but they're going to be pushed right to the wire. I don't know what you guys think. We're going to start with Kaz.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough schedule. So I probably need to go back and look at who they've played then, because maybe they've not been as dominant as it sounds like they have. They've obviously had quite a softer schedule to start with. That might have played a part in there. But yeah, that will be tough, especially 2 against Seattle as well, and LA to finish the season, because that could, that game against LA to end the season could decide on seeding.
Actually, we talked about formality games. Liberty, of course, was that ridiculous game that got settled essentially on the press of a button being wrong, or at least that didn't force it to overtime. They handled the Fever quite well. It was an interesting game to start with, and they beat the Mystics and they beat the Lynx pretty well. But as Michael pointed out, no Sylvia fouls in that game. Mikey.
Yeah, I mean the complexion changes with how they look in a week and a few hours' time. If they suddenly lose both games to Seattle, then what are they? What are they now? 8-3, so they're suddenly like 10-5.
Yeah.
And then they have a softer part of the schedule, and it's kind of, you think, like, if you need, it's going to be tight, and that's the thing. Like, all these schedules are competitive. Like, outside of really New York, if once Atlanta get Carter back, everyone could be on their day. Even like the likes of Indiana, Dallas, who are out of the playoffs, could upset a top 14 this year. You would back Vegas in most of those games, but it says it only needs one off night, like we saw against New York, and anyone can beat anyone. So it's going to be a really interesting end to that season in that 2-5 stretch.
And it wasn't even that off night. It really wasn't. Like, New York played really well. Aces weren't quite what they've been, but they were by no means bad, I don't think. Just I'm in favor of expanding the league. I think there's so much talent in female players around the world that we're only going to give 144 jobs out. That seems kind of crazy to me. We could definitely cope with a couple more teams, and I think they'd still be really competitive for the most part. But this 12 teams, oh man, it makes for a really exciting season. Shall we move on to Seattle? The final team in our marathon halfway report. The Seattle Storm, who are all arranged the opposite direction, which I did not realize. It's because they're champions. Or not champions, it's because they're leading the way. They're first in the WNBA. They have an 11-1 record, and they have won their last 9 games. They are resurgent with Sue Bird, again, arguably the greatest player of all time. There's a few of them in this league. And one of the forerunners for MVP, Breanna Stewart, as 2 of their real standout players. Kaz, talk to us about the Seattle Storm.
They're absolutely dominant. They're having a historically offensive productive season. They're first in the league in assists, first in points per game, first in 3-pointers made, second in the league in blocks, second in the league in field goal made, and third in rebounds. They scored 18 threes in a game last week, and they've got an offensive rating of 107. They just look unstoppable. Like every single player that they have on the starting or on the bench can just come out and score in double figures and have such an impact. They've got Jordan Canada coming off the bench. Sammy Whitcomb's had a great run of games recently. Brianna Stewart looks absolutely the MVP that she did in 2018. In fact, she looks better. And coming back from an injury like she has, to come back and just fall straight into that, it is incredible. And she's obviously done a lot of work to do that. Sue Bird, she's missed a few games. I think she was 5 games earlier in the season with the bone bruise. But when she's playing, she's looking fantastic. They're just so together. And I think we mentioned this in our preview, that they are the team that's had like the least amount of turnover. They haven't really had many new additions. I think maybe only literally a couple of players have come in, and they've kept that core together. And it's working. They look incredible. I think Vegas will have an idea of how to stop them, because they're so dominant inside. But they're going to be 2 really exciting games. Those 2 on Saturday and Thursday.
I'm not sure if you mentioned as well, Jewel Lloyd, 13.7 points per game. You know, she's been everything they've needed from her. It's just super impressive. But they do have that one loss. That is a 1 on the loss column. And that came game 3 to the Washington Mystics. And it wasn't close.
It wasn't? No.
It was 89-71. Talk about a divergence of fortune. Okay? That game is like that bit in that Fast and Furious film where they drive the different ways.
What game was that? Washington's 3rd game.
That was the game that set off that was the last Washington win before they went on the losing streak.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know what to do with that personally. Just very, very strange. But you're absolutely right. This is an absolute juggernaut of a team. Michael, what have you got any numbers that you can throw at us to make sense of their dominance?
First in the league in points per possession, first in the league in points possession allowed. So the best offense and the best defense. That contributes to the best team in the league.
There you go.
And yeah, look, they're terrific. They can afford, the way it's looking, they can afford to look after players like Sue Bird heading into the postseason, which is going to be an advantage. Everyone's going to be tired towards the end. They've already given Sue, I know she had an injury, but they're already looking at giving her maintenance days early on before her injury. She's playing 21 minutes a game when she is playing. And Jordan Canada's been exceptional filling in for Sue Bird and kind of given Seattle that luxury. They've got some really good depth. And Sammy Whitcomb's maybe the one that's kind of flown under the radar a little bit for me. She's averaging 10.3 points per game and just doing a lot of really good things for this team. And I know you like your stats, Darren. So when did she last miss a free throw? Would you like to guess?
In that game 3 loss against the Mystics.
Well, according to the WNBA site, she hasn't missed a free throw since 2017.
What?
Oh, I am looking at regular season only. That might be because I can't filter just by playoffs.
I mean, I can.
She missed one in the 2018 playoffs.
Does she take
but she hasn't missed a free throw in the regular season since 2017. She doesn't shoot a lot of them, but she hasn't missed. And
how many is not a lot of them?
Well, she's made at least her last 33.
I mean, that's 1.3 a game. Okay, it's not exactly massive, but it's not nothing.
It's less than a free throw. But again, she's someone, and this is why I'm trying to build to it. She is 0.6% off being in your 50, 40, 90 club. She's shooting 49.4% from the floor, 46% from three, and she's 16 of 16 from the line.
She's on the list. She's on the 50, 40, 90 list.
But yeah, no, Seattle have just got depth. They've got talent. They're well coached. They're well organized. They're super aggressive in pick and roll defense, which has caused teams a lot of problems. I don't want to say they're unstoppable, but you would struggle to bet against them winning it all as of right now.
I mean, the plus minus is 15.4, so they're pretty dominant.
I think they're on pace to track the Mystics from, I can't remember what year it was. I saw something the other day, but they're on pace to pretty much have a league rating that's pretty much never been done before. So yeah, that says what you need to know about the Seattle team, and they've played pretty much everyone once outside of Vegas. So they have played against the Lynx, they have played against Chicago. So yeah, they're looking good.
God, I'm really excited for next week's show already to talk about, that matchup. But at the moment, don't want to, like you say, you don't want to call it now because A, if it doesn't happen, it's going to look stupid, and B, it's a little bit, it's a bit boring. They're definitely going to win it. But how is a team stopping that? 42% from three as a team, and they're scoring by far the most. They're scoring just under 10 threes a game, which is Dallas is next closest at 8.3, but they can also play inside, of course. I mean, are they the perfect team?
This is the thing when they come up against Vegas. So Vegas are a team that don't shoot threes, and Seattle are a team that shoot a lot of threes. How are Vegas gonna? I know that's the question you just asked. How are Vegas gonna stop that? And I think you've got to try and shut down Stewart in the post, but that's so hard to do. That's easier said than done. And when you're playing against them, you can't afford to make any mistakes because they will take advantage of every mistake that you make. You have to play the perfect game and kind of take advantage of the very few mistakes that they do make. It's going to be really tough. It's going to be really tough.
Is Brianna Stewart on your 50, 40, 90 list? Because I've just realised she's shooting 46.5% from three. So she's at 88% from the line, and that's the only reason she's not on the 50, 40, 90 list, just to prove how dominant she's been.
She's on the list. She's on the watch list. I think by next Friday morning, we might know who our MVP is after those two games. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds ridiculously premature, but we'll be 2/3 of the way through the season by that point, pretty much. But I think that it's going to come down to if A'ja Wilson plays the game and Vegas play pretty much at a perfect game, which I can see them well doing because they're going to be up for that game. That's going to tell us a lot about the title picture. It's going to tell us if Seattle can be stopped, but also it's going to teach Seattle how to improve, which is the terrifying thing with them. They're like a Terminator; they can learn. I'm super excited. We're not going to get into awards chat today. We will save that for next week because I'm very conscious of time, and B, I think we're going to talk about it a lot more after we see Brianna Stewart and A'ja Wilson clash at least once by that time. So I think that's pretty much going to do it for us today. Kaz, is there anything else that I've missed, that we've missed?
I've just got one kind of question fact for you. So Candace Parker's near triple-double last week when she was one assist away from a triple-double. So in the history of the WNBA, there's been 19 times where someone's been one assist, one rebound, one block, or 2 points off a triple double. So there's been 19 near triple doubles. Every player except Candice Parker has only done it once. How many times of those 19, including Saturday, has Candice Parker done that?
4. I've got no idea.
11.
8. She's got
Ooh.
8 of the 19 near triple doubles. I just thought, like, wow.
I mean, her teammates need to do better, to be honest. Like, just score, you know? It is hard, but come on. What's that got to be like for a team that has a teammate on a triple double? It's like a baseball pitcher who's like pitching a perfect game or maybe a no hitter, and does everybody get like proper on edge a little bit? Like, oh god, Candice,
I've got to make it.
She's been here so many times. Like, I've got to make this shot, or she'll not be happy. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Mikey, anything from you?
Can we have some more close games?
Yeah,
we have an overtime.
Last week was rough. Like every game, and I mean, it kind of helped us in a way that we've not had to kind of review games by game by game. But it kind of seemed like every time we looked at the score, it was kind of like a blowout last week, and that's not the way the league had gone until then. So if we could get back to nice close games, that would be wonderful. Not that the Boston's been bad, but it is always more fun to watch when we are in 1-2 possession games with 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, so from the weekend just gone, the only close game was the Phoenix-Dallas game. Aside from that, I don't think any was within a handful of possessions. Pretty one-sided stuff.
We had Chicago involved with Connecticut. I'm just going back through the week. That was a 1 possession game. Dallas Phoenix, was 6 on Saturday, and then we had obviously the Chicago Vegas game we've kind of talked about round table-ish on Tuesday, and then even Atlanta Washington last night was fairly close. I mean, all 3 games were kind of close, but you didn't quite see it coming down to the stretch as much as we would have liked ideally. So it was a bit of a rough week for close games, sadly, but with the league being so competitive, you'd imagine that will change fairly soon.
And again, looking at the schedules that teams are going to be playing, it's the big dogs facing off against the bigger dogs over the next few weeks. And so that is going to do it for us today at Focus Hoops WNBA Show. Kaz, thank you so much for joining us, as always.
Thank you. And thank you to my internet provider.
Big thank you to your internet provider. Do you want to name them? Do they deserve it?
Yeah, they do. Hyperoptic Broadband. They can be my unofficial sponsor. Thank you for your very good cable internet.
There you go. We now know what Kaz's door looks like. I genuinely thought Kaz was in a completely different location. Mikey, thank you as always.
Thank you, Darren.
Big thank you to your lamp for dying on us halfway through. And again, big thank you to always for you for watching, for commenting, for getting involved. Thank you to Notch again, mynotch.com. Again, not a proper sponsor, but they treat me real well, and I think they're pretty cool. And always check out the link below for Ashley Smith and her charity effort for the kids in Zambia. Thank you so much for watching, and again, enjoy this week's WNBA action. And in the meantime, and in between times,